This is the first episode of The Boys season 5 where I finally felt like the show is waking back up a little bit, not because the main story is suddenly moving at a lightning speed, but because this episode finally brings back some freshness into the series. We get character focused stories, hilarious comedy, absolutely brutal deaths, and one of the funniest sequences the show has done in years. And yes, seeing Jensen Ackles, Jared Padalecki, and Misha Collins back on the screen together again. As a massive Supernatural fan, I was loving every second of it. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Surfing the Stream, where I am here to discuss episode 5 of The Boys final season 5. This is probably my favorite episode of the season so far. Now, before I jump into things, I will be talking full spoilers from this point forward. So if you have not caught up through episode 5, this is your moment to push pause and then come back once you have caught up, because I am legitimately going to dive into lots of specifics for this episode. And truth be told, just as an overall opinion of this episode, this is probably my favorite episode of the season so far. Now, that doesn't mean all my problems with the season have just magically disappeared. I still think that overall the pacing has stalled over the last few episodes. We're halfway through the final season, and the main story still feels like we're crawling at times. But this episode at least gives us something different. It explores some side characters that desperately needed some development. It gives us some really great comedy, and it also pushes forward a few of the storylines. So this episode is broken up into some POV one-shots. It's basically like one little small story for several different characters. So let's start off with Firecracker, because this is easily the most depth her character has had since she was introduced, and it was needed. She's been around for a couple seasons now, but outside of constantly pandering to Homelander, I still don't really know who she is as a person. And this episode finally changes that. You really get the sense that Firecracker is being pulled in two completely different directions. On one side, she knows Homelander is full of shit. She knows he's not some savior or this god or messiah. She knows these miracles are propaganda. And her old reverend shows up, straight up calls out all the Democratic Church of America nonsense for exactly what it is. On the other side of things, she still wants fame. She wants the power. She wants Homelander's approval. I think this is what makes her so interesting. And I will say, after this episode, I think she elevated her character to one of my favorite characters of the show. Just after this episode, I thought it was a good arc. I still can't fully tell if she follows Homelander out of fear, obsession, or ambition. It's probably a mixture of all of that, but I do have to give credit when credit is due, and Valerie Curry gives a hella great performance. One of the best performances of the season for sure as Firecracker, especially during that scene where she's making those outrageous accusations against her old reverend. You can see that it's destroying her emotionally while she's doing it. Like, she knows she's lying. She knows she's betraying somebody who genuinely cared about her, but she's already way too deep in to Homelander's world to stop now. Once she betrayed the Reverend and fully turned her back on her faith, her death really did feel inevitable at that point. So when Homelander kills her at the end of the episode, I think it was the right time to conclude her arc. And it was a great one, I have to say. I like her character a lot, but it did feel like that story reached its natural conclusion. Now let's talk about the dumbest duo in the entire show, Black Noir and the Deep. This subplot had me cracking up the entire time. I love that Noir is doing some acting outside of being Black Noir. And then you have the Deep getting jealous because Noir is upstaging him. Once Noir gets revenge by suggesting that Oh Father healed the Deep's voice during the Easter ceremony, everything completely spirals. And then that's when the Deep responds in the most crazy, psychotic way possible by killing Noir's play director. It's so absurd. And again, it works because the show has fully committed to the stupidity of these characters. And then we had a one shot of Terror, the dog. At first, I'm not going to lie, I thought the terror stuff was going to be a gimmick. Like, cool, we're going to follow around this dog for an entire one shot. I think it worked as best as it could, to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was a complete waste, but could we have done some other things? Sure. But for what we got and the concept behind this, the idea behind this part of the one shot, it worked for me. The whole concept of terror just wandering room to room, accidentally overhearing all these conversations between major characters was pretty clever. I'm not gonna lie. Meanwhile, Terror himself doesn't care about any of this. He just wants two things: chocolate and sex. Respect. Like, I can't argue with the logic there. 100% down for that. This episode uses him as this weird connective tissue between all of the different storylines, and somehow it is entertaining. If you would have fed me that idea ahead of time, I would have said it's gonna be so stupid. I don't want to watch that at all. But once you watch it, it's like, nah, that works. It works. Then we have Sister Sage, and then we get some insight into Sister Sage for her one shot. And I've really liked that. Learning that her parents basically grew to resent her because of how intelligent she was adds a little bit to her character. And then her grandmother becomes the one person who actually embraces her intelligence and encourages her. There's some solid character development here. But more importantly, this episode makes it very clear that Sister Sage does not want Homelander getting that V1 formula, because unlike Homelander, Sage is thinking way bigger. She doesn't just want control. She wants a collapse of all society. She wants a full-blown world war soup. Oh, with all that said, I still don't care much about the Ashley stuff. Ashley used to be, I won't say that she was one of my favorite side characters, but I really enjoyed Ashley as a character early on in the series because she was this hilarious, nervous wreck, constantly trying not to die. But at this point, I'm kind of just over her storyline. I wish it would just end. I wish we would have kept Firecracker and got rid of her. That would have been perfect. Now that we've gotten all that other stuff out of the way, let's talk about that sequence, the supernatural reunion that has been teased for months, if not over the last year. Seeing Jensen Ackles, Jared Padalecki, and Misha Collins back together was amazing. In almost any other show, this would have felt forced or gimmicky. And y'all know I can't stand gimmicky things in TV shows. But The Boys has always done a great job of blending real world celebrities, politics, pop culture references into this universe so naturally that when it does happen, it just fits, and it fits perfectly. This entire back half of the episode is easily one of my favorite portions of season 5, if not my favorite. The comedy absolutely lands. The moment they gas Homelander and try getting Soldier Boy to kill him was incredible. I almost fell out of my chair when Soldier Boy said, "Nobody fucks my son but me." Wait, that came out wrong. It was perfect. The line delivery was perfect. And what makes that sequence even better is how quickly the comedy turns horrifying and gruesome once Marathon starts slaughtering his own friends and literally running through them, and then watching him get his head smashed in. Absolutely classic and hilarious. So overall, this episode finally brought some life back into the season for me. Do I still think the main storyline has stalled a little bit too much the last couple episodes? Absolutely. And I do think that hurts the episode somewhat because it's hard not to think about how slowly the season has been progressing forward. But judged on its own, this is a fantastic episode. As a standalone episode, this was great. The one-shot style storytelling, the side characters finally getting some meaningful focus. The comedy is some of the best that we've gotten over this entire season. And despite that V1 storyline only moving forward just a little bit, at least it is moving forward a little bit. So yeah, this is my favorite episode of the season so far. But guys, let me know down in the comments below of what you thought about this supernatural style episode. Did it finally get the season back on track for you? Or do you still think that this season is struggling to push that narrative forward. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. That's really going to help us out. Hit that notification bell so that you know when the next episode of The Boys is going to drop. And I appreciate y'all joining me for this review. I will catch y'all next time on another one. Laters.